Our next guest this evening is the expert. We've got him right here for you. On soon-to-be canonized Junipero Serra. Christian Clifford has been a teacher in the schools of the Archdiocese of San Francisco since 1997. He's taught grades 6 through 12 and has been published in the Archdiocese of San Francisco newspaper Catholic San Francisco, the California Federation of Teachers magazine California Teacher, and is the 2010 recipient of the AFTCN Best Single Publication Award. He's with us tonight to talk about his brand new book, St. Junipero Serra, Making Sense of the History and Legacy. Welcome to the Busted Halo Show, Christian Clifford.
Thanks, Father Dave. It's great to be on.
And thanks for joining us all the way from the Golden Gate, the Bay Area, the Golden Gate, the lovely.
Right.
And it's summertime, so it's cold there.
No, it's really, really hot today.
Come on.
90 degrees.
So Mark Twain was lying.
Yeah, well, it's unexceptional. It's usually not like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Junipero Serra, you describe in the book that you kind of caught the bug and wanted to learn more about him. Probably many of our listeners are beginning to hear his name for the first time, perhaps in conjunction with the papal visit that's happening in just days from now, realizing that a canonization mass will happen. For the first time on U.S. soil, a pope will make a saint of someone who is just thus far been blessed in the church. But there also, if people have heard the name at all, they might be aware of some controversy surrounding him, and probably any time, honestly, with any saint, probably there's some people that say, well, I don't know, I knew the guy. I don't know if he should be a saint.
Mother Teresa even had her naysayers. Can you believe that?
Yeah. So, but what I liked about your book is that what drew you into learning about this soon-to-be Saint Junipero Serra, who they sometimes call the apostle to California or even to the Americas, is your desire to learn about his connection to the people he wanted to serve, the Native American people.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So, as you're aware, it's a very sad history, the interaction between the European and the native peoples. You guys are in the Northeast. The history there is different from the history in California. Not a lot of absolute violence, like in King Philip's War there in Rhode Island area. But ours is through disease, and it's very tragic, and that pain and sadness is really deep in some people. So much that they refer to Junipero Serra as the devil, Hitler, which I think is very unfounded when you look at the recorded history. And that's what I do in my book. I basically remind the reader of the significance of the historical method, and I walk him through it, and it's in a very succinct way. You can read it in probably 2 to 3 hours. Perfect timing to prepare for the canonization in 12 days.
It sounds like he's giving us an assignment for his 12th graders.
Teacher,
It's also on ebook, so you don't have to wait for the U.S. Postal Service to drop it off. So,
all right. So tell us a little about this blessed Junipero Serra. While we certainly admit that some are not a fan of him or his work, what would be either the church's take or, as you describe, the historical take on who this guy was and how he evangelized or even served the native peoples of California?
Sure. So first, just a real quick overview of his, his biography, basically. And then I'll speak briefly to his relevance today for people of faith and why, I think Pope Francis is canonizing him, and many of us think it's long overdue. He was born in 1713 in an island called Majorca, Spain. It's in the Balearic Islands. It's the largest of the islands. And he was a very sickly little baby. He was baptized just hours after he was born, and he ended up living 70 years. So his life is kind of a second miracle. At that time in history, people lived on average about 30 to 40 years, so he doubled that. And he was ordained in 1737, a Franciscan, and he was a professor for 9 years and very beloved by his students. He was a doctor of sacred theology and philosophy, and he really had a pang in his heart God was calling him for something else. And when word came from New Spain, current-day Mexico, that they needed more missionaries to evangelize, he heeded the call right away. And he left Spain knowing he would never return home.
Mm-hmm.
And he was already a pretty old guy when he got on that ship, and he landed at Veracruz on the Caribbean in 1749. And for 20 years, he ministered to, I guess we'd call them lapsed Catholics today, people that were of the faith, the native Pame, but really didn't practice it, went up there, evangelized north of Mexico City. 20 years he was already doing that. It wasn't until 1769, that he finally got his wish to evangelize people that never heard of Christ.
Mm-hmm. And when we say that, because we could use that word just as a verb, some people might be imagining because he is from Spain, the Spanish conquistadors that, as we know, as you were calling it, New Spain, would have used a method that today we would not embrace, forcing native peoples under threat of death, as we see in other parts of the world today. That was not his way of evangelizing, right?
No,
it was not evangelization by the sword.
That's right. That was about 200 years previous. So the controversy kind of comes about when Sarah is in modern-day Baja California. He sees the naked native for the first time, like Adam, and he begins to evangelize to people that never heard of Christ. And the controversy comes with why he was even coming to modern-day California in the first place, and that was to set up missions, to evangelize. However, one of the impetus for that was to create a New Spain here in California, because the English were coming down from, Vancouver, Canada, Oregon, and the Russians as well from Alaska. So the Spanish Empire felt they had to get up here, make citizens of the people, make little towns like in Spain and Mexico. And
sure. So there certainly is a colonial dimension of that time in history that we and many developed countries would not embrace that technique today. But sometimes I find when, and this is obviously to no belittling of those in the Native American community who really are genuinely upset by him or by this history, but it seems to me that we often will, in our very quote-unquote enlightened modern era, look back on different times anachronistically, in the same way that we look back on, films of pregnant women smoking cigarettes in black and white films in the 1950s, and we go, good Lord, how could... And that was really kind of just... That's what happened. And so was he a product, Junipero Serra that we're talking about, was he a product of more political machinations in terms of Spain and trying to get a foothold in this land of California? Yes, probably. But day to day, what was he doing? He was talking about Jesus Christ, right? And probably pastorally dealing with people's needs and helping out people that needed help and all that. Or am I wrong? Am I off base? Or is that or is history kind of support that?
Father Dave, you're spot on, because he actually went to Mexico City. It took him going there and coming back 1 year to tell the governor that the natives were being abused by the Spanish soldiers, and he was speaking up on their behalf. And what came out of that discussion was basically a Native Bill of Rights. I mean, he was working for social justice. Mm-hmm. On behalf of the neophytes here in California, or modern-day California. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he's very heroic in that regard.
Now is he, for those who are maybe certainly are familiar with the West Coast and have been there, but maybe even those of some of our listeners who haven't, but might be familiar with or have heard of or seen pictures or paintings of what we usually refer to as the California missions, that beautiful sort of architecture that is somewhat unique to them, even though each of them are a little different. But is he literally the founder of all those? Did he go and build all those?
Oh. No, he founded the first nine. The
first nine? Well, I mean, that's a few.
9 of 21. 9 of 21, yeah. So, they're beautiful. When Spain was beaten by Mexico, and Mexico gained its independence, the missions here in California basically went into disrepair. And it wasn't until President Lincoln actually returned them to the church, but they were basically in ruins at that time. So when people visit the missions here in California, what they're seeing are kind of redone, you know. There aren't many in their original state. But, you know, all of them are Catholic parishes except for two. So they're still active parishes. So that's kind of neat.
Well, we're speaking with Christian Clifford. He's the author of St. Junipero Serra, Making Sense of the History and Legacy. And I like how you're a little bit ahead of the curve with the whole book publishing thing, because he'll be a saint in a few days, but boy, you'll have the book ready to go as soon as that is. Everyone else will have to be scrambling to change their signage, not you.
Yeah, that's right, Father Dave.
What are your hopes for the canonization ceremony that will be performed first time? It's a Catholic record for a pope to do a canonization ceremony here in the United States. You are a native of California. Will you be watching on the direct TV or the Cablevision, or will you maybe be in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I'm really hopeful. It's looking pretty good that I should have a ticket in hand in a few days.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Ticket in hand.
Yeah, I teach church history and Christology at Sarah High School in San Mateo. Little shout out to my students who are listening.
Hello, students.
Yeah, you know, we're named after Junipero Serra. So there's 4 high schools, Catholic high schools in the United States named in his honor. There's 1 public high school in San Diego named in his honor. So, yeah, I'm really hopeful that I'll be there. And, you know, among the 25,000 plus at the East Portico of the Basilica, the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Yeah.
Pretty cool. You can find more information or buy the book at saintsarahbook.com, and it's Sarah, S-E-R-R-A, not like Sarah, like, you know, Sarah Smile,
Yeah.
Hall & Oates, or Sarah, who else? Sarah.
Sarah Bareilles.
McLaughlin,
Is that
Sarah
her name?
Bareilles,
Love
Sarah
her.
Palin?
Not like those.
Oh.
Sarah Palin. No, not like any of those.
Name us some famous
it's
ones.
Sarah, S-E-R-R-A. Would you say, just for a few moments, anything, and this is not necessarily your area of expertise, but some of our listeners may be familiar enough with the name, at least the last name, from the organizations that are often parish level or diocese level that promote vocations, known as the Serra Club. Why do they take their name from this soon-to-be saint?
I think they go back to the early 1930s, and of course, as you stated, they're all about nurturing vocations in the Catholic Church. And, you know, at the time, in the 1930s, Serra was a big name. That's when his statue in Washington, D.C., at the U.S. Capitol was, you know, put into place there representing California. And he was just very popular in people's minds, and that's when his cause for canonization began. So it goes way back in our history. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Serra Club's doing great work, and they took the name of a great man, that's for sure.
Well, you can find our guest, Christian Clifford, on his Twitter, at Saint Sarah 1, or on Facebook, Junipero Serra. saintsarahbook.com. The book is St. Junipero Serra, Making Sense of the History and Legacy. Christian Clifford, thanks a lot for joining us here on the Busted Halo Show.
Thank you, Father Dave.
And all right, take care.